set, Ross?
Yeah, that's all going. I got about a minute left.
Yeah.
What goes in that?
Yeah, Zach's in the back.
Can't tap on that wallpaper, is that the Grand Hotel?
He said
It's just
that's.
Oh. Yeah. They're all pretty much like that.
Yeah.
They are, they're all like off the deep end.
Zach said it's part of the bylaws.
You might want to introduce.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we go into the agenda and approval of it, I'd like to welcome a new plan commission member, Kevin Ross. Thanks for joining, Kevin. I appreciate it. And we're missing one plan commission member, Garrett, tonight. Everyone's here. And so move into approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, so
We're gonna put an amendment with that though to move the Coyote Preserve up in right after the call to the public.
all right, a motion to amend the agenda to have new business item number 1 right after call to the public, prior to old business item number 1. Support. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed, so approve the agenda as amended. I'll move into approval of minutes. Starting first with July 12th, 2022. I was not in attendance. I did go through it from a spelling standpoint. It looked okay. Members, please speak up if there's anything you guys noticed. I'll scroll through it. Any issues with the July 12th minutes?
Move we approve.
Support.
All right. Any objections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Approved to the August 17th, 2022 minutes. Again, there's no issues from the spelling standpoint, and then this is kind of discussing the master plan and then increase the accessory structure. Any issues?
I move to
with
approve.
those? All right, support. Moved and supported to approve the August 17th minutes. Any discussion or objection? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, this has been approved. Okay, go back to amended agenda, going to new business, item number 1.
Do you want to do call to the?
Yep, thanks, Kurt. Move to, appreciate it. Call to the public. See planners on Zoom. Is there any members of the public who would like to make comment at this time? All right. Not seeing any. We'll go into new business, item number 1. And this is probably is this the best page for you guys to give a summary of kind of what the proposal is here? Okay, so you could introduce yourself and then let us know, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
I have extra copies of this if you want paper or if you're good with the.
Yeah, we all have copies also.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm Don Beagle. I work for Coyote Preserve. I'm a landscape architect. Prepared the site plan for the request for additional 36 by 80 storage building. This is the existing building that's on site now. This is the proposed location of the new building. We're getting to the point where we've just got so much equipment and it's pretty expensive these days. You can't leave it outside for longevity purposes. Building would be, you've seen the handouts and the little schematic that the company that sells it provided. Concrete floor, electric for lights, and that's no water, no bathroom. It's just for indoor storage. There's sufficient room to place the building there to give us access to our soil bins and whatnot between the buildings. We meet all the setback requirements for the ordinance. As you drive along Linden Road, I've taken some shots. The screening was of a concern. We've got one area that it's primarily sumac vegetation. It's grown up. It's lost its screening ability. We may have to supplement that, but the building during the summer is pretty well concealed. And I don't want to bore you with information. I'd rather answer your questions. We've got a couple gentlemen here that can also answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thanks. No, I think that's a summary of what you're proposing.
I see quite a bit of landscaping on the plan. Is that new landscaping you're planning on putting in?
That was on the original PUD development. And it really wasn't put in. That was a open area that when we bought the preserve, that material was not there.
There's quite a few trees there though. Right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the whole floor is, and there's a lot of trees around that area. I don't know if it's exactly like that landscape plan, but it's covered.
The elevation helps screen from the road too. It
Yeah.
gets down.
Yeah, it's
I mean, when
about,
you drive down there.
it's about like 15 feet or something, right?
Exactly. It drops way down. And then there's actually like a barrier there. And it's only a 12-foot building, walls. So, and it sits adjacent to the other building. So it's gonna have the same color, you know, it's gonna complement the other building.
That wall there in that photo in the bottom left, is that like a retaining wall? That's existing retaining wall in here. It looks like it's just on the west side of the proposed structure.
Yeah,
Is that
that's retaining wall.
It's a Gabion structure.
Gabion wire wall.
Wire
So is that's going to be moved?
No.
Just because looking at the drawing here, maybe that's not the scale. If you zoom in there, it looks like it's like cutting through that wall.
No.
Right here, Rich, see that?
It does, yeah.
And that wall, that,
I don't know if that's the wall.
you know, like you said, things weren't everything per this plan. This is not
Yeah.
existing. This was the proposed plan in
Right,
1998.
Yeah, that's not.
That's not what's happening.
That's
Our
not
plan
what
is not to.
All right, and I guess that,
Trying to see if you can see it in one of the photos.
The
Yeah,
wall
that's
actually
photo.
goes parallel to Linden Road. And that's,
Slide that down.
Right there is the wall he's talking
Photos
about.
up there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you scan to the photo?
it's in the bottom left there, yeah.
You can see the wall there, and
That will stay there.
the concrete structure that you can see by the pickup is right here. So the wall is out in this area.
There'll be no doors facing the road? I'm trying to get an
no,
idea, okay.
there's an entrance
I
door
think
on the
it's just-
gable line, and then
I
an
think they-
exit, on
They
the,
didn't build it.
There was a lot of
South end,
things that
and that's
happened,
facing
like
the other building.
bankruptcy
I
and
see
then it
two-
sold
yeah,
and
two side
all
doors
sorts
and
of
the main
crazy
door.
stuff, so
Yes.
things didn't get built as they.
So Ross, and along Linden Road, what is the setback?
So
I'm trying
it's-
to remember what it is here.
It's RE zoning, so a front yard setback is 100 feet. As a special land use, there is a provision, now this might be a stretch, but I'll read it. It does say for golf courses and related uses, as far as buildings, that they shall be located at least, or well, not less than 100 feet from any property line abutting residentially zoned lands. I don't know if that's actually intended to refer to a front yard setback location, but it's not very specific. That's going to be in Article 24. So if you want to bring that up and take a look at it as a planning commission, see if you think that that's sufficient. It says that if it's screened, basically.
But 24 what?
It's special land uses, so that's, I'm sorry, 22. Article 22, and it's going to be, if you search golf courses, you have all the. There you go. So you've got those specific standards there, and buildings number 3.
Yeah, so I guess.
So we're really looking for a road setback, though.
Yeah, because this,
It depends on how
is-
you want to look at it, because technically, the road, or the road does lie, two property lines abut at the center of the road. The right-of-way is above those two
Yeah.
parcels technically.
and I see.
One, I can definitely, I mean, I can't tell what the intent actually is. It's very, it's kind of vague. But other than that, I would say that it'd be 100-foot setback in the RE district.
Yeah, I guess.
And what is the proposed setback right now?
65.
Well, it shows 65, but that looks like it's to the road itself.
65 to the,
To the road.
It's gonna be to the right-of-way where the setback is measured,
33 feet.
33.
Well, it might be.
Are they gonna have to go to ZBA, Zach, or is this something we can make a decision on?
Well, we can get Zach's opinion on it. You know, the way that I interpret that, it's probably a stretch to consider that as, you know, the intent, since it is a road location, not necessarily
What's directly across the street to the west?
a residential zone
Woods.
property.
Is a residential property?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a big wood lot.
And technically, it is adjacent residentially zoned property, whether it's separated by the road or not. It's kind of where there's a gray area because the
Right.
intent isn't exactly specified, where you can make a call on that, or see what Zach's opinion is on it, or,
Yeah, considering we had the issue, we had the conversation about the other golf course and having all the equipment outside and kind of seeing it right from the road. The idea that this won't have any doors facing the road and everything will be inside.
yeah, the use
I think this is an
itself,
improvement.
I don't think anyone has a problem with the use
Ross,
itself.
the part I'm looking at here, it says that it specifically mentions, provided that topographic conditions are such that buildings would be screened from view,
Right.
then it gives that we may modify it. But, I don't know, people wonder what Zach, do you have any opinions on that, or?
Not yet.
Okay.
What my approach to do, if asked to look at it, is taking a deeper dive with the specific language for the golf courses. But I also want to look at the PUD approval. Sometimes there can be specific standards in there that are different from what the ordinance says.
It wasn't necessarily a PUD from my understanding. I think that it may have been applied for as a
Okay.
PUD. Well, I'll need to actually verify that. I'm not completely certain.
Okay.
If there is a, go
I
ahead.
can find that.
I was gonna say, I haven't done any research in it, but I can take a dive at that and give an update at the work session on next week if you'd like.
We can convert that to a regular meeting too.
Hey Ross, how many people were notified on this because of the size of this development? Do you know how many letters were sent out?
What, initially?
Well, the 300-foot radius, right?
You're talking about back in 1999.
No, I mean, did this have to go through, no, it doesn't.
The subcommittee determined would be a minor amendment,
Minor, okay.
which
They
does not
didn't-
require the formal public hearing process.
So they did
No
make that
notification.
determination that it's a minor amendment.
Right.
I think it's an improvement. Keep
I
the
agree.
equipment inside, I like it.
Yeah, it's just the question of the setback, I think, is the only thing that anyone has any concerns over.
I think if there was a property where that says it may be varied from that 100 feet requirement due to topographical reasons, this would be it. I mean, you probably are gonna maybe see the roof, and you're just gonna, the underneath of that sumac, you can see through it, but like, you know, you plant something, it doesn't need to be that high to screen it. I mean, it's, according to the contours, it's about 16 feet down there. And I mean, I've driven down there, it's hard to see, I mean, you gotta kind of navigate
gotta
down
look
the hill.
You need to actually
Look, you
look
can see
for
the
it.
roof.
Yeah. I'm sure in the wintertime you probably see a little more. But I think that's when we could require additional screening.
Well,
And
that I guess is the question, is are you able to put additional screening in there if necessary?
If necessary, sure.
I think a few pine trees would be, I'd vote for it today if they agree to put a few pine trees in.
Because that is a tough area for topographically, as it's, you know, it moves downhill to Linden Road there.
Maybe some like king arborvitaes, something that's gonna grow fast and big, you know, to screen.
Deer feed, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd put more like a
Yeah.
spruce in.
I'm just trying to put a barrier in, you know. The other thing too is, I mean, from Linden Road, to me, that wouldn't be the issue. It would be the two guys that have $1 million houses looking down on it. And that's Ron Hessling and Mark Crawford. They own the properties looking at this, right?
Right.
From their,
In the development.
they're in the development.
Right,
And
west.
both of them, when I live in the development and I'm part of the HOA, I'm the vice president, they both said they don't want to see equipment with tarps on it. You know, they absolutely want to see a building because it's gonna look clean. They're looking at their building right now every day. So this would be adjacent to it. So I mean, I think the people that really matter are the people that can view it every single day out their back window.
Correct.
And those properties here in this area.
Yeah,
Speaking of generally,
Have you had any?
they're on the golf course,
Oh.
so it would be this way,
yeah.
yeah, that way.
Have you had any people try to break in or anything along that area there?
No, but I've heard of a rash of break-ins lately in Fenton, mostly like near
Yeah, I just
Margaret
wondered if you guys
Drive.
had been victimized at all along there.
Nobody in our neighborhood has had any break-ins, but we're on the alert. And we even had a van driving through slowly, and one of our residents followed them out. It was at night, it had a security sticker on it. So yeah, we're on the lookout, believe me.
That was my only question on this one, Ross, other than that, it's straightforward.
I think 80 feet, I think maybe 6 or 7 pine trees in there would give us a really nice screening and actually improve it. That's reasonable?
If you're going with the, interpreting that as, hey, we can reduce the setback as the planning commission, provided that there's sufficient screening, then yeah, you can absolutely go that option.
Yeah,
It's
I
just-
think to start with the
as a
first
commission-
item, I would agree that we could go with less
Yeah,
than, we could propose that.
Yeah, I think it's topographically qualified
Yeah.
for an adjustment there, but I think that the screening needs to be built up a little bit too.
So I think that we'll need some specific standards for screening, and I think that we'll want that shown on an updated plan. So if you were to do a conditional approval, then you would want to see that before. Did you want something verified through the subcommittee to verify that it's sufficient?
And Ross, maybe quickly go over where we are at in the process.
The
You
process
can
for
explain,
this?
yeah, for this,
Yeah.
for Kevin,
Yeah.
and all of us,
Yep.
as a reminder.
So basically, this is a proposal for a minor site plan amendment, which there's two different types of site plan amendments, minor or major. Minor can be approved through the planning commission, major cannot. Major is essentially reopening the whole special land use again, requires public hearing notification, all property owners within 300 feet. Needs to go through the formal procedure that all new special land uses need to go through. And that would be a planning commission recommendation to the township board. This does not fall into that category. This is something that was determined based on criteria by the subcommittee, can be classified as a minor change to the site plan. So that's where we're at. It just requires a formal review of the application and approval or denial by the planning commission.
Could you handle it administratively? I mean, if we're talking
Not-
about a few trees or not?
Not the minor amendment itself.
So it's come back.
I can't do anything unless I have.
It doesn't have to
permission
come
for
back, we can approve it conditionally.
Right. we
It could be a
I- we can-
conditional.
And you can verify it.
Right, that's what I mean.
And I can run it past the subcommittee, make sure
That's what I was talking about.
everyone's comfortable.
You guys gonna try to get this in this year?
We needed to get it in right away because
I think that we need to
Yeah.
get it moving.
concrete is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get you
We're
guys
concrete
moving.
this time of year. We're under the gun.
Well, this is a good time to plant trees too.
I would
Yeah, it is,
move-
yeah.
I would move to approve, based on the subcommittee's recommendation, with the elevation change being the, or the reason for that,
The topographic.
the topographic, with, the understanding that, let's put 7 trees in, does that seem reasonable? We put 7
Strategically placed so that they screen the structure.
appropriately, what, 12 feet apart would about cover it? I think it'd look actually pretty good in a couple of years, you probably won't even see down there.
So my only issue is 7 trees, but like how wide are the trees and how tall are they gonna be, right? It's that,
We'll want,
like, I would rather see a width than how many exact trees.
That's usually in the standard.
Right.
Generally, they're what, Zach, or Ross, 5-6 foot?
you're talking
Yeah.
what type of pine
Yeah,
tree.
and like how you
I
also
mean, there's-
have, like,
Zach said, yeah.
We can get into a
What's
lot of
that,
different species.
Yeah, what you don't wanna do is to plant them on top of each other, because they're gonna be dead in 5 years.
Right.
So I mean, you don't wanna do that, you have to plant at least 15 feet apart first.
Stagger them back.
right, and stagger.
Yeah, so that they come together, but the other thought process that we have to think about as well is, there's already vegetation on Linden Road. So this is enhancing it, in my opinion, right? So we could stagger some trees, the only problem is he needs to get equipment around it. And, we have to look at that spacing, because if I were to plant trees, I would wanna stagger it, right, so that you could cover more ground. Rather than put them right next to each other and put them tight to each other, and then as soon as they touch each other, they're dead, like we see all around here in this area.
Yeah, I think what
Plus it adds hazards to your course.
There's already way too many hazards
I'm
there.
sure you have golf balls out there someday
I
too.
have 1,000 balls out there at least, I guarantee it.
That would be, but we're talking about the trees being between the concrete, whatever that is, structure, retaining.
Yes.
And the road, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
And we can specify the amount, I can submit that back to Ross and, the field placement's gonna be the key.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've got to have access to your buildings,
Yeah.
and that's obvious too.
We'll be fine with, if we plant up in here, we'll be fine with access.
We're gonna have to take trees out to plant that. We're gonna have
We'll
to,
be able to fit them
we will, okay.
But they're gonna have to be done by hand.
in.
We'll be able to. I don't think you can get equipment on that hill.
Correct.
So that's my motion.
That was a motion, so what I got was a motion to approve the minor amendment request with the condition that a revised site plan is provided with details on screening and noting that the setback reduction is approved by the planning commission due to screening and topography.
I think that's proper. Support?
Okay, motion and support. Discussion further beyond what we've done. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any opposed, motion carried. You got that, Ross?
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you guys.
You guys-
Good luck.
We can get it in this year.
Applicant, you're clear on what the request was in the motion? Okay. If not, touch base with Ross, so.
Just send it over to me.
We'll have that submitted probably tomorrow afternoon.
Sounds good, I'll wait for it.
Yeah.
And if those trees are a hazard to the golf course, we need to get that golfer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen some wild shots out there.
And we have to take this to the Livingston County.
It'll be building department after you get the land use permit. So first step is get us the plan updated showing the screening, then provide the land use permit application, fee for that, and then you can get your building permit. So we should be able to issue the land use permit same day, once we get verification that the conditions are fulfilled.
So you come up with a plan.
I will get that done.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it, nice to meet you guys.
Okay, so we'll move into
All right.
old business, item number one, which is master plan. Zach, I don't know, you want to give the quick notes version or run through it?
Yep. I will, I'm switching my mouse over to the other computer now to make it easier for me to scroll through. So we did hold a community visioning session on Thursday, September 22nd, 6 to 8 at the Township Hall. We had about 24 folks there. We attempted to have another one on that Saturday, but there weren't enough members of the public present to hold it, so that one was canceled. Most of the people in attendance had participated in the survey. There weren't significant differences, I would say, in what was said in the survey versus in the community visioning session. We talked about the same sections, or we had the same groups as are outlined in the master plan and natural environment. The most popular responses there, well, I guess I'll back up. So for folks who weren't there, we basically had 10 to 15 minutes where folks would throw out their ideas of things that were important or things that they didn't want. And at the end of the meeting, everyone got 12 stickers, I believe it was, and they got to put the stickers on the things that they were important. So natural, and some of these are very similar. We haven't stuck them together on purpose because they may be similar, but they may be different, if that makes any sense. And there are some items that occur in multiple places, so they haven't really been codified or stuck together yet. But in natural environment, the most popular comments were slow growth and preserve the quality of life, the quiet and natural environment. In traffic and transportation, the most supported were bike lane wide shoulders on paved roads, and no truck routes in the township. For community facilities, there were a lot of responses for that one. The most popular were walking trails, bike trails, parks and recreation plan, preservation and harmony with nature as much as possible, and need for parks. For community character, the items that folks most selected were, let's see, the rural nature, well-planned residential development with open space preservation emphasized. And if they had a magic wand, they said that the things that they would most want to preserve are farms and create a preservation committee and education for planning commission and officials about preservation. For residential development and growth, again, very similar to what we would have expected, except for Airbnb got a lot of attention, and that was because the proprietor of the event barn was there, and one of the challenges that she expressed was that there's nowhere for folks to stay to support that. So that's how that came about. It's got a lot of little dots there for voting. Senior housing also got a lot of support. As folks would suspect for housing or for residential, the things that people didn't want to see the most were high-rise apartments, which in Tyrone Township would be anything over 2 stories basically, and trailer parks. For non-residential development and economic development, the preferred items that folks most voted for there were for a senior center, non-motorized path and bike lanes, and then some variation of parks, depending on how you combine them. What folks did not want to see, and this I believe got the most votes of anything, was heavy industry. Other popular ones, or unpopular ones, depending on how you frame it, were truck stops, aggregate mining, and warehouses. So that's generally consistent with what I would have expected. The Airbnb was a little bit of an anomaly there. I'm curious to hear from folks who were at it, anything that they learned, and then I'll have a couple of questions for you on next steps with this and how we incorporate it.
Everyone got 12 stickers?
Correct, yep.
I wonder if the lady from the event barn put 8 of the 12 on the Airbnb.
Because
I had other people saying that
that
they
was
didn't want it.
That was exactly the case.
It was?
When, when we were, Steve, you were there, the one.
I was at the Thursday one.
Yeah, and that was what happened, but we were in a different group, but that's kind of how it is but it does,
You can vote how you want, there's 12 stickers, but I think we need to maybe consider that.
She wasn't able to vote on other things.
Correct.
So it's just kind of a ranked choice voting.
Vote early,
All right.
vote often.
Yeah. Where's your cut? Maybe we'll.
But I appreciate that Zach followed up with some information with that,
yeah,
and
that's good,
that's important because that's still one vote.
I thought the Thursday session was actually pretty good.
Yeah, people who were there said they enjoyed it.
Yeah. I was surprised. I watched the Saturday one.
Yeah, no one showed.
I saw that. I was watching it, and I mean, I don't see anyone on here, but
I don't think it's.
I don't know if there's a reason to reschedule it because you saw my email, right? On that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you did do that, if you did talk to 50 people and no one showed up, I think we covered it well enough that we could.
That's the consensus.
Should move forward.
That's what everyone came back with. There's no reason to reschedule the general one. It's just not going to get us any additional information.
Yeah, the only question I had, Zach, have you ever seen where a community can preserve like farms or open space or land or natural features and generate revenue for a township at the same time? It's obviously, maybe there's some unique ways to do it, but
It can be a challenge to actually implement. So some of the ways that that can happen is if you have areas where you do allow more density, so if you've got an urban service district or something like that, where you've got a lot of utilities, you try to put as many people there, for example, or development there, that allows you to balance it out. One other way that some communities do this, I'm going to pick on the Ann Arbor area now, is the city of Ann Arbor has a millage. They collect money from all the residents in Ann Arbor and they buy development rights in communities surrounding them. So they're basically buying up a green belt buffer around the town. So that's kind of nice. If they come in, they spend the money, but it's a bit rare. There is a potential for non-contiguous PUDs, so you can preserve some area with some other area going in. But what I would say for master planning purposes, this is kind of where you're using the big 6-inch brush to get kind of the vision of where you would like to go. And then figuring out how to get there is a little bit farther down the line.
Yeah. No, thanks, yeah. Because that was the one thing at the vision that surprised me, that almost everybody, someone brought up, they would support a millage to preserve like natural resources or open areas, and almost everyone was in agreement. Normally, people don't jump up to pay more taxes, right?
The people that showed up for that would vote for that. If you put it on the millage, I bet you it would get less than 25%.
Yeah, you understood. Obviously, we have one segment of the population at the thing. It was surprising to me. Zach asked, like, what jumped out at us? That was surprising to me. But a lot of these things are the population that was at the visioning session. I might have been the youngest one there. So to me, that it tells you that who's engaged and then who's going to be paying for it for decades to come is not the same people who are voting.
Right.
So it's in that context of a visioning session.
One thing I got out of it was at least that I felt really positive about was the support for parks. I don't know if we have anything in the budget, how we can go about possibly getting some grants for that, but that would be one thing that I would really like to see us do, is to push that on the master plan, to start that process.
Yeah, and I think we did in one of our I think it was probably one that one time was prepared.
Oh, yeah, way back when.
Decades ago.
No, I think the plan right now, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are going to address some parks and recreation in the master plan, but then potentially at a later date, depending on what the board thinks, maybe put in place a full parks and recreation plan, which we can use to seek grants.
Yeah.
And you need that, right, Zach?
Yep.
Yeah, so our guru for the parks planning sits right across from me in the Ann Arbor office, and I've let him know that you guys are kind of interested in doing that. So as we start to develop the back end of this plan, the actual vision is that we can incorporate some of that information in there. In order to qualify for grants, you have to have a very specific format and very specific information in a park and recreation plan, which is kind of silly, but that's their checklist. That's what they want to see. And I think it has a shelf life of only, it might also be 5 years. But so yeah, the idea was to get some of that packed into here so that if there is interest going forward in developing a parks plan, it'll be a lot easier lifting at that time.
So there was a large consensus about wanting parks and natural areas, if you read through this. But our current master plan, future land use map, shows Tyrone Hills Golf Course to be planned commercial services and planned office.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we can easily make changes to, is that desired? We're talking, would we like to add another public park? But we have some nice natural areas in the community and what we can do to preserve that.
That did come up, John. Yeah, we talked about the pyro and how many applications have been submitted to do something in that, and I believe Ross said there has not been one. Yeah. So I think that we should kind of.
Yeah, there was. The asphalt plant.
Well,
they applied
but
for
not
and one.
Either way, that was in pyro.
But not in the pyro. I mean,
Well, the pyro is not a current zoning district.
But what I'm.
That's that's why no one's applied, right? Right, Zach? Pyro is only in the future land use map. It equates to M1 and M2 in our ordinance, and that has been applied for.
But what I meant is that we haven't got any like office requests, office zoning or things like that. So maybe we should take that,
industrial
take
research.
that and
I think,
look at what that actually might.
I agree. I think that's gonna be the most important part of
Actually
this whole
turns
master
out.
plan process, is the future land use map.
Absolutely.
And we gotta think about that every step of the way when we talk about parks and stuff, and you look at these natural areas that we have, well, what are we gonna do to preserve them within that future land use map?
Definitely.
And that's gonna be a big question I have for you guys based on the direction we've seen, at least in the community survey and the visioning session, is that there is very little appetite for any sort of industrial. So kind of like high-tech manufacturing maybe, or research and development, but absolutely no interest for any heavy industrial. In your current master plan, future land use map does dedicate a significant area to supporting that. So when we get into the later discussion today, I'm going to kind of want some sort of direction from you guys on, do we start to look at and pull that back, or do we continue it and get direction from the township board? I guess my last comments or questions rather on the community visiting session is just wanted to confirm that this ought to be included as an appendix in the document, kind of similar to the community visioning or the community survey. So if there are any objections to that or any other thoughts, let me know. The other direction I would like to get is, do you want us to incorporate comments received as part of this visioning session in the document? So for example, in the housing article, to talk about, for example, at the community visioning session, there was not support for more trailer parks or tall apartments. Something like that, like we've already done with the survey. What do folks think? You want us to reference this into the document itself?
I think the document kind of explains it that we're looking at here, Zach. It seems like it summarizes it pretty well. But I don't know what others think.
You're talking the exact comments that you've received and written from the public, or this summary of the comments here?
Yeah. So, for example, in the housing article, or the housing analysis article, we describe the type of housing that's available, and we say in the community visioning session, 73% of the respondents strongly supported or supported senior housing. So something similar would be at the community visioning session, there was support for these things, and there was not support for these things. So that the documents would still live in this form, but there'd be a reference and allusion to them in the housing article, or the non-residential article, or the transportation article.
I like the reference note. Then you look to the appendix to find this exact document here?
Yep.
Does that give anyone, my concern is, okay, somebody says, this comment was made, you didn't address it, now we're gonna go take you to court to try to force you to come up with some kind of zoning or something like that. Does it put any potential legal issues on us?
I don't believe so, especially if it's done well. So because the number of folks, even though 24 is a very healthy number for a Thursday night to come out and volunteer time, it's much smaller than the amount of people that participated in the community visioning session. So the type of reference we would do would instead say, these were the things that were preferred, instead of saying, so many people preferred these, or these are the top 3 comments received at the visioning session. So it will be a much looser correspondence. The other thing is that the real meats and potatoes gets developed from this. So this is kind of setting the field, and then when the goals and objectives in the future land use map are developed, that's where the rubber starts to hit the road. And that's where you can make some discretion about these are areas where things make sense or don't make sense.
Yeah, so it sounds like it doesn't really bind us to anything.
Well, in that case, why not?
Yeah, it'll just be more information. Yeah.
We'll start making those updates. My last set of questions for community visioning session is the consensus from the township officers we're good with this front end of collecting information to help establish it. My thoughts for the second group of community visioning sessions is that's where we can test draft goals and objectives and future land use map. So I wanted to see if folks thought that that was a good approach and if you still wanted to try to have a Thursday and a Saturday one.
I think Saturday morning at 9 a.m. proved to be a terrible time for people to,
I would,
a non-mandatory meeting. I don't know about anyone else, but, I mean, who was available at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning?
My thought on that, Zach, is it would be better for the planning commission if we had one in the evening that the members could make sure to try to attend, and then, because the feedback there is, it's good experience, and it's it was like a positive meeting. Right? It was fun, and it wasn't like
I know. I was excited on Saturday for it, and no one showed.
So that's my take on it, is to have just the one in the evening.
When, what are you thinking about doing this, Zach?
I think it was November 10th.
Yeah, it was scheduled for the 10th.
10th and 12th.
I thought there was one on that's the
Tentative
12th?
for the 12th.
Okay, for some reason I thought there was one on like the 17th, and that's not a good time.
Yeah.
I think you have published dates out there for meetings. I think it becomes problematic from all of the issues that we have with everybody in here when we cancel stuff. So, if nobody shows up,
10 to 12.
we gave them the opportunity to participate. If we cancel it, they don't have the opportunity to participate. So I as much as I got stuff to do on Saturday mornings too, I would rather see us stick with the schedule that we published and try to support everybody attending than to cancel something. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's on both the websites we have, the master plan website, our township website.
What are those dates, John?
November 10th, Thursday, at 6 to 8 p.m.
Yeah, we don't have.
And Saturday, the 12th, at 9 to 11 p.m.
All right, we'll go ahead and plan for that. Do folks like the idea of using it as an opportunity to test different goals and objectives?
Yeah, I think that would be good, and then I would be interested in the future land use map. I think you mentioned Zach.
All right, I'm all set then with this portion of the master plan.
Just a quick note,
Yeah.
for any future reference, if there are any additional vision sessions, you could almost use this upcoming Saturday, as kind of like a test bed again to see if there are going to be any, if it was a bust like last time.
Yeah.
So you know how to at least plan from henceforth forward.
Well, the first two were general too.
Right.
They were basically the
Right,
same.
right.
So that was an opportunity giving, potentially two different groups of people an opportunity.
Yeah, the idea behind the Saturday was that
This one, I
didn't
believe,
have a chance to make
the
it
Thursday
evening.
Right, yeah.
this one, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to have different focuses during each session, or is it going to be kind of a same deal?
We could flex it however you'd like. Originally, the first two were intended that members of the public could participate in 3 of the groups, and if they wanted to participate in all of them, that was their incentive to come back to the next one.
Yeah.
We called an audible and shortened it up, tightened it up a bit so that folks could participate in all 6 groups at the one meeting, based on some comments that were received. So we could flex it up and say, one of them we're going to talk about goals and objectives, the other one we're going to talk about the future land use map. However you guys think would be most productive for your process.
think similar to how we did it, people were very efficient and respectful of each other. It was, and we covered a ton of information. So it seems like you could do both and
I would
have it be where you have two groups like we did.
I wouldn't want to leave the future land use map for Saturday morning at 9 AM.
No.
Yeah. All right, so we'll try to incorporate them to get everything into one. That's kind of what I'm hearing, and we'll plan for both of those dates.
And covering both top topics on both dates.
Yep.
I like that. Because I can't make the 10th, but I'll make the 12th.
Yeah.
I'm opposite, so.
Okay.
All right. I'm all set with the community visioning session then.
All right. Then any other items you need from us, Zach, for any development of the master plan or questions?
Yep, there are a couple. So you guys did get a draft community facilities and public services analysis article. Similar to your current one, we've updated information in there. We've added some additional information, code enforcement, waste management. Let me see. There are a couple of others in there that weren't. It's still a draft document. There's going to be some information to incorporate this from the survey and from the visioning session. The couple of questions I had with this is, let me scroll through. For the Parks and Recreation, there were a couple that were listed that I can't find exist or not. The trade and paint, the paintball.
Trade and paint no longer exists. That is
Okay.
out of business.
Strike that.
There is, just directly adjacent though, Tyrone Sunken Gardens, which is
Yeah.
a quasi-public
Okay.
park, I guess, of sorts.
It's on the
You will
south,
add that in.
it's on the southwest corner of White Lake Road and Old US 23.
And actually, the person who sits right next to me in the Ann Arbor office, that's where she took her senior pictures
Okay.
back in the day.
That's cool.
So I will strike trade and paint and add the sunken gardens. My other question for recreation is, in the survey, people listed a lot of parks that they go to in surrounding communities. And so my question is, would you like for us to include like the most popular, the most listed ones? So Benton, this is where folks went, and Heartland Township, here's where they went. Or do you just want us to reference that people visited recreational facilities in the surrounding communities?
My thought is just reference the surrounding communities, because like you mentioned, Zach, there was a long list
Yes.
Right.
of parks. And it was pretty much every state park within 50 miles
Right.
that were on
Yeah.
that list. And so it's hard to, but yeah, it's a
All right, so we'll just kind of reference them generally and direct folks to the survey and the appendix if they want to find that. The other things, and this isn't so much a question, but that will get added in there is the sewer details. There just wasn't quite enough time to get this in there. But sewers tend to be more complex, so we're going to work on that. This article has been pretty well proofed, but if anyone sees any weird words or typos or something like that, let us know. We'll make the correction. We'll put it out there. And there were a couple of questions I had for some of the other articles. The economic analysis article. Your current master plan has really complex language about the trade area and the demand for square footage. So basically, if you're doing an economic development plan, you find the trade area, which is how far people will travel to get stuff from your community, goods or services. Your current master plan just kind of said, we're not going to figure that out, we're just going to define Tyrone Township as the trade area. And then it goes on 5 or 6 pages on describing the income and the potential value and the square footage and the acreage to support that. Before we spent time updating that, I wanted to check to make sure that that was important. I will say my observations are Tyrone Township is kind of split into two primary trade areas, city of Fenton and a bit of Linden up on the northwest corner there, and the township south of you, Heartland Township. So it seems like you're part of other trade areas as opposed to being your own. I guess I want to get thoughts if you wanted us to invest the time to redevelop your current one, or if you want us to say we're kind of in orbit of two different suns, and so it's a bit peculiar.
That's kind of reality.
My personal experience is the second thing you
Yeah.
mentioned, where
Yeah,
we're in the
that's-
middle of two different
It is what
trade
it is.
areas.
Three different.
Yeah, tell it how it
Or
is.
3 or 4.
Right.
Owl,
Oh, yeah.
you know, wherever.
Yeah.
It's depending on
Okay.
who has what or doesn't have what.
All right, that would make it a bit easier, and that kind of affects the type of commercial services that are available. So for example, personal services, and we noticed this in the survey, like doctor's offices and things that you don't want to travel a long distance for will make sense. And then kind of the bigger things that folks will travel to. Like, I'm not saying this, but just to give an example, like Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, that you can put somewhere and people will make the trip to it. So we can write that more to, we're in these orbits, and that affects what makes sense to come in here. Let's see. So economic development or economic analysis article will be ready very soon. The natural environment article, that's a newer one that wasn't in your previous master plan, that will be available soon. Let's see. For the existing land use, we're about ready to hit that in the computer now. So if there are any, if you remember that map, it has some gray parcels that SEMCOG basically said it's vacant, we don't know what's happening there. If you know of any parcels that do have a use on them that you see are gray, please let us know real quick, because then we can update it. It's a lot easier to tend to that in the front than in the back. For goals and visions, okay, this is where I'm going to start to get some direction from you guys. If you're comfortable, my recommendation would be that we start to develop draft goals and visions based on what's in your current master plan and try to right fit that with what we've heard at the community visioning session, in the survey, and based on the existing condition analysis that we've done. My aim would be to have more goals and visions than ultimately get in there so that you guys and the public can edit things out that you don't think are appropriate. My experience has been it's a lot easier to cut than to draft at public meetings. So that would be the big focus for the November 10th and 12th meetings. So I guess I want to see if folks are comfortable with us taking that approach where we take the first stab at drafting it based on what you've got and what we've heard.
I would be. I think that's the easiest way to, if we're the editors, then that's much easier to do than drafting.
Yep. All right, we'll take that forward. One last thing that I will make a plea for everyone here and everyone in the community. I got to do the long drive up from Oxford Township to Mackinac City today, and there are a few things more glorious than Michigan in the fall. We want you guys to take pictures of lots of things in Tyrone Township, and so we can incorporate it in the master plan so it's a much more personal document. So go out there this fall while the colors are pretty and get as many pictures as you can of all the things that you see there. There is a spot on the project website to submit those. If you can't find it, or if it's cranky, you can get a flash drive or mail it to Mr. Nicholson and he can get it to us. It would be really sad if all the pictures were taken in winter because we didn't get any and we had to go out there and take them at the back end of the process.
When we give Jeanette repetitive.
I think she was going to submit some.
I think we ought to let her do that.
I think that she can provide some assistance in that field, yeah.
She's got the camera equipment and, you know,
Probably already got it.
And Zach, did we mention that at the visiting session? I thought we did, to the public.
Yeah.
I thought,
I don't think it stuck because people were really excited about the stickers at the end. And
yeah, and what you're talking about, yeah, true, so maybe for the next one, would be good to mention in the beginning of it. And people might-
And we can obviously incorporate pictures that folks had from the past for example, Argentine Township, the township had a bunch of pictures on their Facebook page that they sent and we were able to incorporate. But it's good to be a bit more deliberate about the stuff that you get to include in there. So that's all I've got on master plan for today, unless anyone else has other comments or thoughts.
I got one question for you. One of the things that I have a concern with in maintaining a rural community here is the fact that we're running out of land that has lake access. And the two areas where land with lake access could be developed would be the two gravel pits that we have. How do we protect ourselves from having one of those gravel pits turn into Michigan Adventure Park or Camporee World or something like that? Because I've noticed one that is west of Byron over here, just west of Tyrone Township. Small gravel pit. 2 years ago it was nothing. Now there's 350 trailers around the site. And it's in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, you have rural neighbors going, you know, the roads are all full of trailers and everything else. And I'm trying to look ahead, you know, 10 or 15 years down the line. And how do I manage that process? And do I want to prevent it? And my personal answer would be, I'm not in favor of somebody turning those places into, you know, a bunch of condos or whatever. And make a campground of it, or make an Michigan Adventure Park was a gravel pit, and that's now a gold mine over there. I understand that, so developers know that. So
Yeah, so I'd say, personally, I like amusement parks, so I'd love to have amusement parks anywhere, but that's not a good fit for everywhere. Residential or those uses can be a creative reuse of those sites, but it has to make sense. So one of the things, and this is kind of been taking it a step back, is we want to preserve natural areas, and is there infrastructure? If it's gravel roads, it probably doesn't make sense at all to have a high traffic generator down 2 miles of dirt roads where you're going to be over capacity. Or it doesn't make sense to have something that requires lots of water and sewer services when it's a long way from that. So that would kind of be the approach that I would recommend, is building up from that base to direct the future land use.
because, you know, both of these gravel mining operations technically are in bankruptcy right now. And
Well,
that could allow someone to come in and buy it up at a low price and then try to turn it into something.
Yep. We'll pay special attention to that. I'm actually surprised how they could run into bankruptcy. The ones in Oxford Township I deal with, they're mining stuff from deeper than they ever thought they would, because the amount of money they can get from it is sky high these days. But for now, you're protected with your future land use map and your zoning map.
Okay.
So there would be a number of hurdles for them to have to get through today to do it. And I guess our approach would be to make sure those hurdles remain in place where it makes sense. And it would probably also be a great opportunity to look at one of those parks and recreation facilities. As you mentioned, it's hard to get to the water if you don't own the water in the township. So that might be something where you designated, hey, this is where we'd love to work with Livingston County and these other entities to try to create a recreational facility at one of these places.
Yeah, and you know, I could see somebody using dirt bikes and that kind of stuff and turning it into a place for that kind of stuff too. So, you know, my concern is how do I provide some sort of vision to pass on to the next generation without losing, you know, businesses and other stuff. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yep. We'll keep that in mind as we start drafting the next sections.
Thanks.
Good question, Kurt. Anything else on master plan this time? I think a pretty clear direction on the visioning session, Ross. I think we're all set there. That's it then, Zach, for master plan. All righty.
I'm all set.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to get out. You guys still have the first session scheduled for Wednesday, right?
A week from tomorrow, yes.
So I thought that we were holding off on those. Didn't we not have one last month? And
We canceled it because we had the visioning
Right,
session.
so the idea is to cancel the one in November.
so we can set one for next week. Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay. What I will try to do is get the economic analysis and national environment out. I do have remote access and ability up here on the island, but it's tough with a little tiny laptop screen, so that might be something that comes out to Mr. Nicholson on Monday for distribution. But it's similar format. It shouldn't be too frightening to look at, just to make sure we're going in the right direction with that. And so that'll be my homework.
Thanks. Okay, we'll move to the new business number 2, election of officers. So with some, typically the terms are 1 year, and then our bylaws mention that it's supposed to happen in November. So we kind of have a few different, maybe Ross, you probably have a good summary for us.
We added it on this agenda because it's been 1 year since the last appointments, which I forget the exact reasoning. I think we had a resignment or something. And,
Yeah, Dan.
Yep, Dan resigned, so we needed to do the election a month earlier. So I figured that we could at least put it on the agenda and talk about it. I don't know if we can extend the existing terms until next month, if that would be an option. If we could just hold the election, amend the bylaws, so moving forward it's always October, or do an election and appoint terms for 1 year and 1 month, so it balances out November 2023. So, I don't know, however you want to do that. I just thought that we should include it because it has been 1 year, and per the bylaws, those terms do expire.
I know I've seen enough election ads in the past couple of weeks that I just hit the mute button on my phone.
I thought that I saw somewhere everyone's term was listed on that email.
Those are terms to the planning commission. These are the
We're
planning
looking
commission
for
officers.
of the planning commission.
Oh, officers?
Yep, so chairman, vice chairman, secretary.
Okay.
So if you
Who
want,
are the current? Obviously I know.
chairman, Kurt is vice chairman, and John is secretary.
You guys want to do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we just want to do it for a year and a month and balance it out? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, because I'm just, on that, that was my question. Usually, typically, the appointments are done in the September meeting.
November.
Or is that,
August, I think.
or August? When is that?
Selection, or you're saying
Terms.
the board?
When the board, like if a commissioner's
Oh, yeah,
term ends.
to get on the planning commission.
To get on the
So
planning
like,
commission.
what do you wait at 2 months and then
The
Is
terms
that-
are different. It depends.
I
on
know
what
what
our
our,
initial
yeah, so it doesn't matter. So
It's
this is
scattered.
irrelevant. Okay, that's my
But the
question.
bylaws state that selection at a regular meeting in November of each year, the planning commission shall select from its membership a chairperson. My opinion is that we just basically extend for 1 month due
Yes.
to it being early and then revisit.
And then it'll be November.
like a month.
Yeah.
It says it in November, we should do it.
Yeah.
I don't really care, but.
So we can put that on the next regular meeting agenda and just basically at this meeting say that we acknowledge that we're extending them for
Yeah.
We have a slate of officers, we'll just vote on it next meeting, right?
Yep.
Sounds good.
But for tonight, we need to extend it one more month.
I think just so that you're, complying with your bylaws
So that we
as best
got
as possible.
officers, yeah, officially, because this is.
Otherwise, we'll have a void for a month. So if someone just makes a motion.
I'll make
to-
that motion.
Support.
We need to vote, right?
Okay, so the motion was to extend the current.
Till November.
Till November, okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. All set, Ross, on that one?
All good.
Okay, so we'll call the public. There's nobody here. So we'll go to miscellaneous business and
We're gonna shoot for a workshop next Wednesday, 6.
yeah, next Wednesday at 6. Workshop. And, obviously, we don't need to set agenda here, but I know Zach mentioned some master plan updates, which would be good to talk about.
Is that gonna be the focus, master plan? Pretty
I
much
think it would be
unless-
wise, and then we can bring up the photo thing that Zach mentioned, and then the visioning sessions in November.
But we have a
People
meeting,
opportunity to see them.
planning commission will be next November, not the 8th, because that's the election.
It's November 2nd, I think.
Yeah.
Or they moved it? Yeah, they might
Yeah, it's
have
a
moved it.
Well, that's the one that has an
Can't make the
asterisk.
second
You go to the
until
meetings
next week.
It is,
Oh, God. Bank.
It's first page at the bottom, I think.
Whatever happens on the 2nd.
November 2nd.
Yep, with the asterisk.
2 weeks.
I can't make the 16th, the workshops.
That's perfectly fine.
Right. Anything else for miscellaneous business?
I'm all set.
All right.
It's at
We're adjourned.
Have fun up there, on Mackinac Island.
Yeah.
Zach,
What's that?
I said, have fun up on Mackinac Island.
Yeah, have a good time.
I will try. It's a bit weird being here in the back part of the season, but it's also kind of fun. It's a little less crowded.
I think the Mustang's still open up there.
It sure is, yes.
Have fun.
Good place.
Yeah, it is.
All right, thanks, Zach. Have a good night.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Nicholson, for helping set this up.
Oh, no problem. Take it easy.
Take care, guys. See you next week.
Nice quick meeting.
That was nice.
Yeah, we got the meat of it.
Someone showed up tonight.
I'm disappointed.
I am too.
Yeah, he did. Our new member didn't get the